There's a lot of coaches out there who make a lot of money that don't have really any money in the bank account. No less do they have money in investment accounts or retirement accounts or anything that is actually growing their wealth. And here's the crazy thing: we are in one of those styles of businesses that is so unbelievably opportunistic. Our ability to double or triple revenue in a small amount of time without drastically increasing outgoings means that the type of margins that we can have in our style of business is absolutely incredible. But what we also tend to find is that online coaches are very often what we call lifestyle creeps, which is where, if for instance you are used to earning 5K a month inside your coaching business and you start earning 15K a month inside your coaching business, you feel richer than you ever have, and suddenly you have a 16K a month outgoing style living expense. So whether that is the taxes from your business, but then also you get a bigger house and you get a more fancy car, and then you start thinking, hey, I earn 15K a month, I should be having fancy watches and all of these additional things, and hey, of course I can afford that and that because I earn more now. Just that feeling of going from 5 to 15, for instance, can very often have a coach feel completely invincible, and not having a set structure of how you earn money, keep money, and multiply money is going to massively hold you back from securing wealth in the future. It's going to be a position where you can kind of live for the moment, but you are not going to be in a position of certainty. It's not going to create a system where you can reduce your anxiety around finances and where you're going in the future. And if you really want that security and you want your life to completely change, even more so than what it is today at triple your revenue, and you want it to be completely different 10 years from now, 15 years from now, one of the best things that you can do is follow this 3-step process that I've put together. It's really, really simple. I've read so many finances books over the years. Long before I was making money, I was already interested in, once you earn it, how do you keep it? How do you multiply it? Where do you invest it? What's the safest way to do so? Some of the stuff that we'll go through here will be very boring in the sense of I'm not telling you to invest in crypto, or nothing wrong with crypto by the way, but I'm not going to tell you that there's one trade that you need to make in 2025. This isn't financial advice. This is just my simple system to not just grow a coaching business, but even more so, when you have grown your coaching business, what do you do with the excess to ensure that you're becoming wealthier on a day-to-day basis, monthly basis, yearly basis, and in 10, 15, 20 years time, you're going to be looking back and saying, hey, one of the best things I ever did was get started with this simple system. And the simple system is broken into 3 steps. The first one here is you need to make more money. Okay, so if for instance you're not making 15K or 25K or 50K or 100K a month inside your coaching business, growing your wealth is going to impact everything else in the other 2 steps. So if you want to increase your wealth quicker, earning more money is of course the thing on the front end that makes that happen. You can't invest your way to great wealth if you don't have great excess on the front end. So the very first step to becoming more wealthy today and also drastically more wealthy in the future is to increase your earnings today inside your coaching business. So if you don't already have a coaching business that's scaling predictably, bringing in leads and bringing in sales predictably, well, look at some of the other videos on this channel, because they are going to help you to grow your coaching business and doing it more consistently through ads, socials, emails, funnels, and everything in between. Okay? So that's the first step. The second step is learning to keep money. And this is something that came up on our roundtable mastermind. We do 3 of them with our systems of scalers, which is coaches who are already doing 6, multi-6 or 7+ figures inside their coaching business annually. And we get together 3 times a year. We do one in the UK, we do one in the US, we did Miami in January, and then we did Barcelona in November as well. So we move around and do these masterminds and get-togethers. And something that came up in Barcelona was the fact that somebody said, look, I have earned more money this year than I've ever earned. Business is an incredible place, but I'm going to be completely honest, I am terrible with finances. And the simplest piece of advice I can give anybody around keeping more of the money that you earn isn't some tax loophole or way to avoid tax or anything like that. Look, I've literally spent tens of thousands now on tax advice. Literally since getting to the US specifically, most of it because I needed to learn a new tax code. And there's more things that you can do here that are completely legal as well. But do you know what I learned was the number one thing from doing all of that was that the majority of the things you should just pay the tax anyway. There's a few really, really cool things that you can do with tax, but for the most part, the things that are in the gray area are not to save 4% on your taxes. I would just rather not get audited and not have to dedicate the next 4 months of my life to finding every single receipt from the last 3 years. So when I say about keeping as much money as possible, it's not about lowering your taxes by any means. Of course, if you're being silly with how you're paying taxes, then you should be looking at that. Every level has a new devil inside your coaching business, and that's one of the things that you are going to have to look at is minimizing taxes. But it's not some crazy loophole there or whatever it may be. Honestly, the advice that I gave there, which I've been told since has been a complete game changer, is run your personal expenses like a business. So, and I hope that you're doing this already, but hopefully you're tracking the expenses and the revenue and the profitability from your business on a monthly basis, whether it's through QuickBooks or through Google Sheets or whatever it may be, but you've got some basic accounting to have an understanding of what's happening in your business on a month-to-month basis. We'll do the same thing with your personal. How much money comes in to the bank account? How much goes out for your mortgage? How much goes out for, food expenses and things like that? If you have these things dialed in, then you can see where there's levers that can be pulled to increase what is left over. Okay, so keeping more money is step number 2. If you've just made more money and you've become more efficient at keeping more money, then the third step becomes really easy, which is to multiply money. And that is where you can take the excess and you can put it into investments that don't take your time, energy, and effort and can actually earn you more over time. Okay, so there's a few different things that you can do here in terms of multiplying through different investments. I'll give you a couple of things that I personally do, for instance, and albeit that this isn't financial advice, this is just me talking about what I personally do. First of all, to understand how much to put away into investments, I suggest that everybody reads The Richest Man in Babylon. Amazing book. Where it tells it through a story's eyes, so like a fictional story, but it's more than anything, it actually kind of walks through this process that I think, haven't read it in a couple of years now, but I believe on the front end it is actually about earning more money in the first case, but a lot of it is about a bucketing system and understanding that once you have earnings, that you should have buckets that take the emotion out of knowing what to do with your money. So for instance, you might say, okay, well, the first 2.5K that comes in post-tax, that comes into my bank account is going to be utilized for mortgage, food, electricity bills, all utilities and different bits and pieces in your house, okay? Just as an easy number there. But then you might say, with whatever is left over, and bear in mind, 1 month in a coaching business, that may be 7.5K. Another month, it might be 21K, okay? It sort of depends, albeit that you should have systems that allow you to consistently grow. It's never going to be the same payment every single month unless you have scheduled things that way, okay? So given the fact that what you can have coming into your bank account could be different every month, it's gonna have resistance to taking the type of action that you would do if you simply say whatever is in excess goes here. So for instance, if you have 5K left over and typically you would say, okay, about half of that will go to investments. If you haven't got a bucketing system that says specifically 50% of what is left over is going to go into investments, when you have 21K come in, you're going to say, well, I might put 3.5K in, but I don't know if I feel comfortable taking half of it away. But if you have a bucketing system where you say, okay, for 10k comes into my bank account, the first 2.5k goes to living expenses, whatever is left over, 25% goes to fun and family, 25% goes to this, and 50% goes into investments. When you have that bucketing system, it takes all emotion out of it, and it just makes it that you're going to earn as much money as you can this month, you're going to keep as much of it as you humanly can, and then 50% of whatever's left over after living expenses is going to go into investments. This is now a bucketing system that has allowed you to remove emotion and to consistently pay into the market, or indeed any other types of investments that you're interested in. Now, I've got rental properties and investments in the market, and they vary as well, and some other investments in different things that are physical. However, if I was just to simplify it to most people, I would say that the majority of people should be just taking a really simple route. You don't want to be glued to CNBC, like I've been from time to time, I'll be completely honest with you. Looking at the market on a day-to-day basis and certain companies and what's happening with them, and understanding when the earning calls are, and understanding what typically happens around an earning call and how things can pull back but then instantly go forward again. Instead of looking at all that, one of the simplest things that anybody can do, I'm not a financial advisor, but a few people have asked my advice outside of a paid scenario. I'll call them friends instead of clients, because I am, in almost all cases, I have been very close with them. And they've asked me about the simplest route, and I've always said, look, just S&P 500. Over the last 100 years, it's averaged something like a 10 or 11% return every single year. That means that through world wars, through Great Depressions, and a bunch of other things, 2008 crisis, all of those things, even though in those years it might have gone down 25%, the average over time has been 10 to 11% per year. Okay, and when you take that into account, that means that one year it might be 25% up, the next year it might be 25% down. But if you're not trying to make a quick buck, and instead you're looking to become a long-term investor that multiplies their money, at this type of return rate, you double your money about every 7 to 8 years, I believe. And that's just with where things have been in the last like 100 years. I think this year it went up 22%, for instance. So if you're my mate and you took any advice from me last year, then you would have gone up about 22%. In fact, my son's only 13 months old, so for tax purposes, opened a 529 plan in the US. It's like a college savings plan. It can be used, any gains are tax-free as long as it goes towards their tuition. It can be used for private schools. It can be used for colleges, universities, even laptops and things. It's amazing. If you're in the US, you should look at 529 plans. They're great. But I put the money in on the 24th of December last year, and then we just went through like a 23% up year or something crazy. So he's already made like 23% on his money. But anyway, and how did he do that? Because inside the 529 plan, it wasn't optional to choose individual stocks. We just went for the safest thing, which was to invest in the S&P 500. And so for me personally, the way that I divide it is around 50% of my investment portfolio, as in like stock market portfolio, is in S&P 500. That steadily grows over time. And then the other 50%, and I wouldn't advise this to most people personally, and not financial advice, but as in like just like a passing comment. Going into individual stocks is a very risky thing. Even the best of companies can have an absolute horror story come out and everything tanks. And so it's very risky. It's a risk reward thing, I guess, but it's worked out for me the last few years. But you know, hey, I could be making a video in 3 years' time and saying, hey, I go back on everything and I should have just done everything S&P 500. But anyway, S&P 500 is a relatively safe thing, because it's got you're basically betting on the US stock market. Top 500 companies, it includes Disney, it includes McDonald's, and it includes all the big names that you've heard of, Tesla, etc. And it's one of those ones where one company could go completely out of business and the S&P price would not go down very much, because there's 499 other good companies there that are propping it up. Okay, that's why index funds are safer than going into individual stocks, because if you'd put your money into that individual stock, it would be gone. If you put it into the S&P 500 and that company goes, the other 499 prop it back up so that the price doesn't go down very far. And these companies are all really established, good companies that have consistent growth over time, which is why they're able to deliver that type of result over the last 100 years. So again, not financial advice, but it's a good route to go down. Second one there would be property. Property is a really, really good one. In the UK market, it's difficult. It's more difficult than in the US market. It's easier to, you can get conventional loans in the US that allow you to buy up to 4 properties in one go rather than an individual property. There's different things that you can do with refinancing and to lower your taxes and different bits and pieces as well. So there's lots of things that you can do with property, but a lot of people go, well, I would never be able to afford the down payment on a property in a given month. Well, the way that you do it is you create a savings account, or indeed put it into the S&P 500 or into bonds or something, but you put that money aside each month. So if you said 50% of the excess that's left over after living expenses always goes towards investments, and the thing I'm focused on is building a property portfolio, you would take that 50% and put it into a savings plan until you have the amount that you need to be able to buy that first property. And it comes, properties come with some cool things, which is like refinancing over time. Again, I don't know the UK laws, but in the US, because refinancing is technically looked at as debt, it's tax-free. And then after you pass away, as long as you haven't ever sold the property, you don't pay the taxes on it. It gets given to your children if you've got it set up in the right way, and they don't have to pay tax on it either, because they, at the point of acquiring the asset, it gets revalued at today's value, and they only would pay taxes on the gains from that number. It's absolutely crazy that you can even do that, but that's the way of it from what I understand anyway. So I obviously went on a bit of a tangent there, but just to keep this really simple, it's nothing more than a 3-step process. Number one, if you haven't got your coaching business consistently growing, it's the number one thing that affects your day-to-day wealth right now, but also your long-term wealth and being able to multiply it. So the first thing you need to do is increase the revenue and profitability in your coaching business today. The second thing is getting good at keeping money. So understanding how to manage your money inside your business and outside of your business so that you maximize what is left over every single month as excess. And then number 3 is understanding how to multiply your wealth. And you can do that in a million and one different ways successfully, but there's risk associated with anything in terms of investments. So my take on it is, I know it's boring, but hey, especially if you're starting this not at 65 years old, and by the way, there would be nothing wrong with starting it at 65 years old. You've got a lot of 7 years remaining here. But if you're starting this at like 28 or 35 or 40 or 45 even, well, if every 7 years the money that you put into these things is going to multiply by magnitudes of 2, well, here's the cool thing. When the money multiplies by 2, if you then have another 7 years, it's technically from that starting position going to have multiplied by 4 because it compounds. Okay, so it's the new number multiplied every 7 years. Okay, so like what did Warren Buffett say? That compound interest was the 8th wonder of the world or something. It's incredible. When I said at the start of this video that could come across as boring because it's like how to get wealthy in 7 years, it's the type of thing that it seems like the safest way to do it. And if you want to do more drastic measures with crypto and different things, I've got some crypto as well. But I have an allocation percentage of all of my entire investments that I put into crypto, and I do it unemotionally, just like how I do the bucketing system with everything else. I always make sure that my portfolio has a certain percentage of crypto in there. Almost all of it is in Bitcoin. And from my point of view, it's a percentage that if it wiped away and it went to 0 tomorrow, it wouldn't be the end of the world. I would just go, oh, well, that happened, and I would basically move on. I would know that the other much larger percentage of my investments are there to prop it up. A bit like the S&P 500, if we lose a company, the other 499 are there. It's the same thing here with a small allocation to inverted commas riskier investments. So that's just my take on it. But those 3 steps there, especially going into 2025 here. And by the way, at the time of putting this out, you might be like, you still got your Christmas tree up. I'm recording this just before New Year's Day, so it probably will be down by the time that I'm actually posting this. But anyway, hope you have an incredible year inside your coaching business. If you want to ask any questions, we can bounce in the comments here. It's not financial advice, but I will be very honest with you in any way that I can to help you with anything that we talked about here. And of course, if you're interested in growing your coaching business, then you don't have to book a call with us, albeit that I'll put a link below to our 30-minute ad strategy sessions, in which you can't get on a call with an inverted commas closer. You would actually end up on a call with one of my coaches who all run their own coaching businesses at multi-6 figures or above. So you're on with absolute gems. They're amazing calls, super, super valuable, whether you choose to work with us or not. But if you just want to get the details, how much does it cost to work with you? What does it look like? You can actually request a 1-page PDF. It's really simple, and I'll put the link to that down below as well. Other than that, everybody have a fantastic day. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff that YouTube loves, and I'll see you in the next video.